Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses. And this is Rasputin and Cagliostro by Manly P. Hall, an article taken from The All-Seeing Eye, Volume 5, Number 1, October 1930. Rasputin and Cagliostro by Manly P. Hall. The gaunt, fantastic figure of Rasputin stands out in startling relief against the prosaic background of the 20th century. His bizarre personality seems to belong to some earlier age. He is a miracle in an era in which miracles are verboten. The Literary Digest defined this remarkable man as the Russian Richelieu. The title may be superficially apt, but a closer analysis reveals a wide interval in the attitudes of these two men. The fighting cardinal was a man of culture and exquisite personality, a politician of intrigues and subtleties, whose life was devoted to the various ends of ambition. Rasputin, on the other hand, was first, last, and always a peasant, with a peasant's viewpoint upon life, a peasant's superstitions and simplicity. Even when elevated by circumstance to a position far above his natal lot, he remained to the end constitutionally and temperamentally a peasant. Like the class from which he came, Rasputin was childlike and candid in his motives and methods. It requires ages of culture to elevate dishonesty to the degree of a diplomat. The peasant Rasputin had his own narrow viewpoint of life between him and what might be termed success. All his instincts, all his hereditary tendencies, all his early environment and training bound him to the great body of the Russian people. Whatever he did, be it good or bad, Rasputin did naturally and simply, free from affectation or subterfuge. Under all conditions and at all times, Rasputin was wholly and utterly himself. He neither analyzed his motives nor explained them. To understand his psychology and the position which he occupied, it would probably be advisable to compare him with another great figure in history who in many ways paralleled the Russian starets in both temperament and achievement. We refer to Alessandro Cagliostro, the great Sicilian magician who swept like a meteor across the heavens of Europe in the 18th century, and whose fall precipitated the French Revolution, even as the fall of Rasputin brought down the house of the Romanovs. The famous, or as some would have it, infamous, Comte de Cagliostro was called by his devotees the friend of the poor and the spokesman of the citizenry of France. Rasputin was the spokesman of the peasants of Russia and championed their cause before the ruler of the land. If any credence is to be placed in the Joseph Balsamo story, the private life of Cagliostro was as wild an orgy of intemperance as that of Rasputin's. Both were accused of sorcery, suspected of every crime, prayed to and cursed in the same breath. Each rose from an obscure beginning and by rare personal magnetism surmounted the handicap of an unprepossessing appearance to reach a point akin to deification. Both were makers of history, and if the stories be true, met death finally through strange and violent means. Cagliostro, according to accounts, was strangled by his jailer in the castle of San Leo, and Rasputin was murdered at night in the cellar of his princely host. While seemingly in order, the element of mystery is associated with the death of both these men. Cagliostro is reported to have been seen in India after his reputed death, and Rasputin is said to have been recognized in a South American city several years after his body was presumably buried in the palace gardens of the Tsarskoye Selo. Both Cagliostro and Rasputin had a similar streak of genius, Cagliostro stamping up and down in front of his judges dressed in pink trousers, green waistcoat and varicolored turban, and Rasputin with his hand-embroidered silk smock, peasant boots and disheveled appearance. Both were bizarre in the extreme. And most important of all, both men were the products of the curious chemistry of circumstances. Each received limited support in his mission and then was cut down. For many centuries, the Russian peasants had existed in a state of ignorance due to illiteracy. Wherever we find this plague infecting the state, we find its sister evil, superstition. Both ignorance and superstition breed violence. Both are caused by oppression, and both in turn are held in check by oppression. Where ignorance of the realities of life prevails, pseudo-orders of knowledge invariably spring up to meet the need. Among the Russian peasantry, we therefore find a species of pseudo-wisdom, a knowledge not derived from books, but a strange compound of folklore and holy traditions, coupled with some practical knowledge concerning the therapeutic properties of herbs and simples. From the intellectual environment of an ignorant people, a decadent priestcraft, and an indifferent aristocracy, Rasputin rose. All these produced a man who epitomized in his own disposition both the advantages of these various social strata. The biographies of Rasputin are replete with contradictions, and though he passed out of this life as recently as the year 1916, his exploits are already half mythical. His personal life prior to his entry into the field of world politics is already distorted out of all sense of historic proportion. The Russian Revolution is probably responsible in great measure for the incomplete records concerning Rasputin, for relying upon the vilifications of the monk Iliodor. The Red government used Rasputin's name and memory as a powerful instrument against the Romanovs and the nobility. The early life of Rasputin will appear in the next issue. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.